Good morning, everybody. How are we all doing today? Hope everybody's doing all right out there. Real quick before we start, I just wanted to give you a couple quick updates before we bring Frida on and everything like that. Yesterday, someone had asked about us doing some Spanish talks. We've spoken to some of the presenters, including Frida, and we're going to start announcing some talks in Spanish. So we'll have the similar talk in both English and in Spanish coming up. So check out the website soon for that and check out social media, and we'll keep you guys posted on that. Yesterday, too, we also, after the talks, we added a really special talk on April 9th with Eric Higuera, who's an award-winning filmmaker and videographer, really incredible stuff. He's going to take us through a walk through Baja and look at some of the giants of Baja that he's been filming with BBC and Nat Geo and these guys, looking at orcas, gray whales, great whites, and all sorts of really cool stuff. So make sure to check that out. So now before we can jump in, let me introduce the lovely Frida Lara, who's here with us today, is taking the time out to talk with us.
Hello.
Frida's been an ally of Dive Ninjas and a close friend of ours since the beginning. She's worked with us on a lot of different things and is always helpful whenever we need help and these kind of things and helping with ideas and coming up with new stuff. She's been really, really great with us. She's a shark scientist currently working with Pelagios Cacuna out of La Paz, one of the top awesome pelagic research centers. And she's also a member at Migramar. Today she's going to talk to us about the bull sharks of Cabo Pulmo. So without further ado, I hand it over to you, Frida.
Thank you.
Stop the sharing. Perfect.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's talk. It's the first time I'm going to give a talk like this, so I'm very excited too. Today, I'm going to talk about bull sharks in Cabo Pulmo National Park. I started working in Pelagios 5 years ago. So we are going to go through the whole story about Cabo Pulmo and some of the main findings that Pelagios has been done in the last years. So first, I wanted to start introducing myself. I always dreamed about working on the ocean. So since I was 5 years old, I always wanted to dive because my dad is a good diver. And then through my life, I had the chance to study marine biology. And 5 years ago, I started my PhD in La Paz, working with Pelagios. And a year ago, I finished my PhD in CCMAR, and I started working in Pelagios as a data manager. So basically what I do is to analyze all the data and create reports and work for this NGO in Mexico. And I'm also part of Migramar, that is a network of scientists from different countries that are working together to protect migratory species. So during my PhD, I used different techniques to monitor sharks. This is a photo during a citizen science trip in Socorro Island on board of Kino El Guardian. So we were able to put some baited cameras, GoPros, that were recording sharks in different places around the archipelago. And these are some of the photos of the things I normally do. So I had the chance to go in some of the trips to tag sharks. I also had the chance to present my results on congresses or conferences around the world. So I'm very happy to do that. But some of my favorite parts of doing my work is to work with the community. So this is a photo of a fisherman, a spear fisherman, and a local fisherman in the Gulf of California, and how we work together to find places where we know we have to protect sharks. So for me, it's very important to do science, but also it's very important to work with the community in order to find strategies to protect sharks, because I think it's super important. So back to the point, I'm gonna introduce you Cabo Pulmo. This is the Mexican Pacific. Cabo Pulmo is just in the south part of Baja California Peninsula. It's just in the tip inside the Gulf of California. and it's very dynamic. It's one of the places that has very, very different structure. It is influenced by the California current, and during the winter months, we have cold water that brings a lot of productivity. We have humpback whales, gray whales, a lot of migratory species come from, even from Alaska, that travel south and get inside the Gulf of California. And after that, during the summer months, the warm months, we have currents coming from the equatorial current that brings a lot of warm water, and other species that are more tropical that comes from Revillagigedo or places from the south. So it's a very dynamic place, and Cabo Pulmo is just in the middle of all these currents, and it has very, very diverse community of fishes and sharks and other pelagic species. So Cabo Pulmo covers a very small area of 91 square kilometers. It has 35% of the area is totally protected, so no fishing is allowed. And it was created by the community. So in 1995, it was designated as a national park. Then 10 years later, Octavio Aburto and a team of scientists were able to describe the increase of the biomass of fishes. So in terms of weight, the fishes increased almost 4 times of the historical record after protecting the area. So it is one of the most successful marine reserves in the world. And after that, 10 years after, the sharks starting to get more and more resident in the area. So they were coming back to the park, and we start seeing more and more species of sharks. And a few years ago, one of the students of Pelagios, Carmen Pasos, worked with the community, and doing questionnaires, they were able to estimate a value of almost $8 million per year for having the sharks inside the park, because there is a percentage of divers that come to Cabo Pulmo just to see these animals. So the main species that you can see in Cabo Pulmo is the bull sharks. This is a very beautiful species. It is, according to the IUCN, the red list, is near threatened, and it has a maximum length of 4 meters. They get to maturity in males around 1.5 meters to 2 meters, and in females 2 meters to 2.5 meters. So females are normally bigger than males, and this is common in all the shark species. Their global distribution, they normally stay in areas that are tropical or subtropical, with waters that are very shallow, very protected, in temperatures that goes from 12 to 30 degrees. And one interesting point of bull sharks, as you probably know, is one of the species that is very, it can distribute in areas that has very low salinity. And one of the reasons of that is that they have a special gland, a rectal gland, that allows them to regulate the concentration of salt in their tissues. So what they do is to travel from the mangroves inside the lagoons and even in rivers. So in some places they have been recorded bull sharks kilometers away from the shore inside of rivers. And this is one of the peculiarities of the species. However, in Cabo Pulmo, we don't have rivers. It's a very desertic environment. There are some dry rivers, as you can see in the map, but normally we don't think they accomplish their life cycle as in other places around the world. So it's very interesting to see what actually the sharks are doing in this area. So in the long-term monitoring program of Pelagios, we were able to show what the sharks are doing. This started in 2013 and is still going, but the protocol was standardized in 2016, and we were taking measurements and showing how the sharks were increasing over the years. So what we have seen in the warmest months is that the sharks normally are absent in the dive sites. We don't see sharks in October and November because we think the water gets too warm and then it's difficult for us to be able to see them. So we wanted to know if the sharks are always present there, if they have a very important role in terms of the ecology. So we wanted to determine the movement scale, how far they go, how resident they are in the national park, and how they use the park. If they are there because they are eating, or they are there because they use it as a nursery area, or if there is a sexual segregation. So if females are just there or males, and what is happening. So the main project of this study is to determine the spatial distribution, the diet patterns, the seasonality, using statistical models. And we wanted to see how the factors like biological and environmental factors can influence the presence of the sharks inside the national park. So what we are using, this is an example. As you can see, there is a bull shark, and on the other side, there is a buoy, and it has a receiver. A receiver is like an hydrophone that can detect the sharks around 300 meters away from this buoy. So if the shark is tagged, we know the code of the shark, and we can get all that information in these receivers. And every 6 months, we go and we download the data and put a new receiver. And we have done this for at least 10 years in many places in the Eastern Tropical Pacific, and especially in Mexico. So Mauricio and James, the founders of Pelagios, had the chance a few years ago to set some receivers in deep waters. So they put one at 60 meters and another at 150 meters. So that allowed us to see what was happening, not just in the shallow areas where we normally dive. We also could detect the sharks in offshore areas. And then I'm showing you the map of all the receivers in Cabo Pulmo. So all these stations, we have 13 stations in the park, from the north to the south. Almost all of them in the shallow areas are around 13 to 20 meters. And in the deep areas are 50 and 150 meters. And this is an image of how the receivers look. And this is the tagging procedure. So bull sharks are one of the species that are very hard to catch. Normally Pelagios is doing internal tagging because we think is the best way, is the safest, they don't lose the tag. But the bull sharks are very hard to catch. So what Mauricio have been done in the last years is to use scuba diving and a spear gun. So you put the tag in the spear gun that is modified, and he gets close to the sharks and tag them. And we know if it's a female, a male, the length, and we take all notes about that. So this is just a short video. I don't know if it's gonna work. Well, I don't know how. Well, if you want, I can send you the link for the video, but it's a video that shows how the tagging is done. And then we get the data. We have millions of detections of the bull sharks, and what we can do with that. So we have numbers of detections in each receiver every year. We have the time of the day, and we compare the shallow and the deep receivers per month. Then we calculate the residency index that basically tells you if the sharks are present or absent during the year. So the number of days present is compared to the time that you monitor the sharks. So if a shark is very resident, it's gonna get close to 1. If it's almost absent, it's gonna get close to 0. And as preliminary results, we have a total of 53 sharks tagged, mainly by Mauricio, and over 1.5 million detections in Cabo Pulmo in the last 4 years. So we still have to download data from this year, so we are gonna get more and more. So now the challenge is actually how to see the patterns. So I'm gonna show you a little bit some examples of what we do. This is a comparison of the number of detections in each of the receivers, in each of the dive sites. And as you can see, the main place where the bull sharks are is the wreck, is the El Vencedor. So it's an area that we have over 100,000 detections in this place. Another important place is Bajo Cien, that is one of the deepest dive sites in Cabo Pulmo, and Islote. Islote is close to a little islet, and it also is very important for the sharks. This is a graph of the detections over the years, and as you can see, during October is when we almost don't get any detections of the sharks, even in the deep receivers. So the sharks were tagged in April, some of them in 2016. We were getting the detections of the sharks, and at some point they were almost absent, and then they come back. So what we are doing now is to compare this with data of the temperature to see if there is an effect of the temperature, and we want to know how females and males react to temperature or other variables like chlorophyll or the moon phase. And we are getting to the point where we can see how every day they change their behavior. If they are inside the park, or if they are in the shallow areas, if they are in the deep areas, or almost absent. At the moment, we think they are there because they use the habitat, because there is a lot of praise. Like this is a photo of Cabo Pulmo in the wreck. And as you can see, there are some snappers, yellow snappers, that are very important for their diet. We have seen also cleaning stations, so little fishes that are cleaning the bull sharks. And we also think it could be an area for reproduction. Since we have seen almost 20 sharks in one dive, the adult males and the adult females can get to these places where they are aggregating and finding a mate. We think they are also detected in the offshore areas or the deep habitats because there is a preyability. They have found in stomach content, so they check what the sharks eat, and they have found congrids, these garden eels that are very particular, that normally stay in deep areas, and also could be related to thermoregulation. So some sharks cannot regulate their temperature, and when the water gets super warm, they normally go to shore areas or deep waters to regulate and get to areas that are more adequate for their physiology. In other studies, they have seen that they can be detected in 200 meters or even more, and this is related where the continental shelf breaks. So if the area gets the continental shelves break close to the canyons, is where we normally, is the last point where we normally see the bull sharks. So as conclusions, bull sharks are in three main areas in Cabo Pulmo: Bajo Cien, Islote, and Vencedor. They are detected during the night. I couldn't show you all the results because we have many graphs and we are working on the publications now, but I'm happy to show you maybe in a few months the results. But we have detected them mainly at night. And we have seen that during the warmest months, bull sharks are very, very common in the offshore areas, in the deep waters. And after 28 degrees is where we normally see that the sharks are almost absent in the park. This is the group of collaborators and donors that have helped us to do this project. This is like all the supporters. And this is the social media of Pelagios. So if you want to know more about the work and other projects in other areas, you can follow Pelagios. I don't know if you have any questions. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Frida. Does anyone have any questions? If you have questions, you can click the Q&A box at the bottom and type in your question, and we'll read it out to Frida so she can answer it and everything like that. So let's see, who's got questions? All right, let me.
Let's see.
1 second. Here we go. So Sue asks, how many bull sharks are present in Cabo Pulmo in peak season? And how do you estimate this? And do the same sharks come back every year?
So it's hard to know. It's hard to actually know how many bull sharks there are in the park. But we have seen that during May is when we have the highest number of sharks. When Mauricio have been tagging them, we have seen almost 20 sharks in one dive. And some of the times that we tag the sharks, the next day, almost all of them are not tagged. So we think it's a very big population, probably hundreds of them, but it's at the moment very hard to know how many exactly we have. We have seen an increase in the pattern of how many we saw in the first years in 2016 to until now. We have seen the number of sightings is getting higher and higher every year. So we think they are getting recovered or they are getting attracted to the park, but at the moment it's hard to determine that.
Awesome, thank you, Frida. So Chloe asks, she says the previous season of bull sharks were not as present in the Yucatan as in previous years. Did you also see this same pattern in Cabo Pulmo?
No, this year we actually were talking about it. I didn't talk about all the people that is working in this project, but Miquel Grau, that is the coordinator of the project, have seen bull sharks almost all the year. So we don't think they are getting absent in some times. What I have heard from the Caribbean is that it could be a seasonal pattern. What we have seen here is that sometimes they don't get to the park some years, and probably this could be related to the reproduction. So females could go somewhere, we don't know exactly where, to give birth and come back the next year. So we don't know exactly if that's the reason, but that could be one of the reasons.
Awesome. So Carrie asks, I remember Mao saying that these sharks were coming back after a long absence. Can you tell us about that discovery?
Yes, we have some sharks that they haven't been in the park for a long time and then they come back. We have some sharks that are traveling far up north inside the Gulf. So we know there is connectivity of bull sharks traveling inside the Gulf. But there is a lot of things that we still have to study, and even that we have tagged 53 sharks, there is a lot of things that we don't know yet. So it's very interesting.
Awesome. So Fernanda asks, do you know if the majority are females or males? And how do you process the information? Is there a database?
I didn't talk about it, but it's, the males have this sexual organ that is called claspers. So they are the reproductive organs for males, and they look like two little tubes that are in the anal fin. So when you see a shark, you look for the anal fin, and if they have these two little tubes that are called claspers, you can assume and you can determine that it's a male. If they don't have it, we say it's a female. Sometimes when the sharks are not close to you, you don't know, it's hard to know, so we just put undetermined and we assume it could be a female or a male.
Awesome. And in Cabo Pulmo, do you see more females or more males?
We have seen both. In the first year, we saw more females at some point, but now we have seen males and females both in large size, and we have seen not newborns. That's the only group that I think we don't have. They start getting close to the park around 1.5 to 4 meters, but the little ones, we don't know where they are. So it's another interesting question.
It actually leads to another question Elsa had asked, is if you've ever found juveniles in the park, and if so, what's the youngest you've ever seen in the park?
The smallest I have seen is like 1.5 meters, but according to other studies in the area in Costa Rica, they burn around 80 centimeters and or 60 centimeters. So by the time that we have seen them, they probably are 3 years old. So there are 3 years that we don't know where they are. We think they could come from estuaries or from other areas, but it's very hard to know exactly where these juveniles are.
Awesome. Have they found any, is there anywhere in Mexico that they found juvenile bulls anywhere that you know of?
Probably, well, we have some collaborators in the Caribbean that are working on the lagoons in Yalajao and in Cancun area to see if they can find the very small ones. In Costa Rica, they have tagged a couple of them, but it's easier because they have rivers and they know when the females get close to the rivers. So they go with nets and they can catch the very small ones. So they know more the patterns because they can see exactly where the sharks are getting giving birth.
Oh, that's awesome. So Emma asks, are the bull sharks in Cabo Pulmo in good condition? Or do you see lots of evidence of humans, for instance, hooks or scarring, etc.?
I think bull sharks in Cabo Pulmo are in good condition. Sadly, the protected area could be very small for some species. 71 square kilometers is a small area compared to other marine reserves. But since this is a very resilient species, we think it's helping a lot to the population. We have seen some bull sharks that have hooks, but most of them are in very healthy condition.
Awesome. Karen asks, do you know if the numbers have declined at all due to shark fishing or fishing in general, and to what extent in the area of the Cape?
Actually, bull sharks are not one of the main catch in the area. We know Baja produces 70% of the shark catches in Mexico, so it's a very important area for shark fisheries. But bull sharks are not as common as other species. The species that are mostly catch in the area are silky sharks, blue sharks, and treasure sharks. But they are mainly in the pelagic zone. Bull sharks are very close to shore, so we think that's why they just they are getting very protected and they get the benefit of it.
Okay, awesome. Christine asks, are bull sharks the most aggressive sharks?
There are some studies that have shown that bull sharks could be one of the most aggressive species. I don't think they are aggressive. They have shown that they have the same levels of testosterone as other species. The thing is that bull sharks share the area where we have most of the developments, human developments. So they are limited to the shallow areas, and we have a lot of cities and a lot of swimmers around the big cities. So it's in terms of probability, if we have lots of people swimming and lots of sharks in the area, there is a big chance that they could attack by accident a person. But we haven't found a specific pattern that shows that they are more aggressive than other sharks. In Cabo Pulmo, the choming is not allowed, so the interaction is natural. They are there because they are doing something there, and as you can see, they get close to you, and we haven't seen any like aggressive behavior. We maybe had 1 or 2 cases where we thought they were territorial, but we never had any accident with them. So we think it's a very safe area to dive with sharks.
Okay, awesome. Duncan asks, do you have any theories about where they might go when you're not getting any detections, such as in October?
Well, our theory was that they go to deeper waters. So we detected a couple of them, and the increases of detections in the deeper receivers are higher in these months, but after a few days or after a few times, they are even absent in these deep receivers. So we think they could go even to deeper waters or to offshore areas, and then come back when the water gets a little bit colder.
Awesome. Awesome. So Steph asks, how long do the tags stay on the sharks?
Well, it depends a lot on the battery and the location of the tag. So if it's internal, the tags can last 10 years. They have battery for 10 years. But in the case of the bull sharks, that almost all of them were tagged externally, it depends on how the tag is attached. Sometimes even jacks or other cleaner fishers can buy the tag or the base of the tag and disattach them. So we have found in some of the receivers false detections, a tag that just fall next to a receiver, and we have like a shark that is detected all the time. But we know it's because the tag was fall, and that's why we are getting a lot of detections. In average, we have tags that last normally 1 to 2 years.
Okay, awesome. And Vera says, amazing presentation. How do you think that tourism influences the shark and other species population in the marine park area? And does it contribute to raising awareness?
I think it's good in terms of having one of the most successful marine reserves in Mexico, in the world. We know they are very important in terms of ecotourism and for the economy of the region. But I think it's important to also look for the ecosystem capacity. So we don't want to have hundreds and hundreds of divers in the same area just because there are bull sharks. So we have been working with the authorities in the national park in order to see the effect of divers. So part of the master thesis of Carmen was to compare the behavior of the sharks when there were divers, doing a protocol of like a good practices of interaction. As you can see probably in the photo, you stay close to the bottom and you don't move, you don't chase the sharks. And is when she saw more natural behaviors. If you are chasing the sharks, they just go away, they just get scared and you don't see them anymore. So that's why we try to work with the dive masters of the park and tell them to follow a protocol to have all the people in the same place waiting for the sharks to come.
Awesome. So just to skip down, there's someone, Fernanda had mentioned that last year she had the opportunity to chart with Carmen Pasos, and she told them that they were studying the different behavior of the sharks with and without divers. Is there any differences that you guys are seeing?
Yeah, Carmen found that the sharks had a much more complex number of behaviors when they were without divers, or when she put some cameras in areas where there were no divers, and she saw more behaviors, interactions between the sharks. When there were divers or the divers were following the sharks, they normally were evasive, they were swimming away, and that was it. So we think if we don't control the number of divers, or if we don't have a protocol of one boat getting in the water, waiting, and the next boat getting in the water and waiting, then we can affect the behavior of the sharks.
Okay, awesome. So then Kenzo asks, are bull sharks protected worldwide, and what is their current biggest threat to this specific species?
They are not protected as a species. There is no regulation for selling their meat or anything. In Mexico, the only 3 species that are fully protected are whale sharks, basking sharks, and white sharks. So if someone is commercializing fins of bull sharks, is legal. So because it's a species that is limited by the shallow waters, it could be very impacted by artisanal fishing and industrial fishing. So I think in terms of this area, and also in the Mexican Caribbean, the human development can be one of the most important impacts on the species. So if we have big developments, big areas with huge hotels and lots of people getting in the water and polluted waters, we probably are affecting a lot the population of bull sharks.
Awesome. So an anonymous person said, thank you so much for this really interesting talk. Are there any previous studies on bull shark conservation? And if so, what's the main reason why you decided to study this specific species rather than, say, a more vulnerable species of migrating elasmobranchs?
Well, the first question was if they are working in the Caribbean with them?
No, are there any previous studies with bull shark conservation?
As far as I know, in Cabo Pulmo, the first records of sharks were in the 80s, in the late 80s, and there were not a lot of studies recording the numbers of species or the like a very specific on terms of sharks in Cabo Pulmo. Pelagios was the first team that was doing this effort of going and study the patterns of sharks. Why I study bull sharks? Because I think in terms of diving industry, is one of the most important species. And I also work with other migratory species. I did my PhD with silkies and Galapagos sharks that are also very vulnerable. But I think we have to work with different species in different places. And in terms of Cabo Pulmo, I think bull sharks are very important. And we are trying to get all this information to show it with the locals, with the decision makers, and to find better strategies to protect the park and get to work with them.
Awesome. Alina asks, do you work together with bachelor or undergrad students? And if yes, is there a possibility to get in contact with you?
Yes, Pelagios just started an intern program. So there is an opportunity for people that is studying marine biology or not. They can be divers or not. And they can get in contact with Pelagios. You can get to the social media websites and the accounts and ask them about the intern program, and they can tell you which kind of activities you can do along the year. Sometimes bull sharks are not present, but you can work with whale sharks or with other species of sharks. So yeah, you can join to the team.
I'll put I'm going to type in Pelagio's website into the chat right now. So if anyone would like to check it out or get in contact and check out their internship program, you can get it from this website and also get their social media and everything like that from their website too.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Rob Atherton asks, bull sharks have a reputation of being aggressive. Do you see much evidence of this behavior at all in your research?
We just had one case of a possible accident with a person 2 years ago, or almost 3 years ago, and probably was because there is people that go swimming at like sunset, and it's exactly the time where bull sharks are hunting. So it's very important that if you go to a place where you know there are sharks, there is a big population of sharks, to get informed about the protocols, to get informed about the safety, and don't go swimming by yourself in areas where bull sharks are feeding. So it's very important that you respect their environment. And yeah, it's a species that potentially could kill you, as other sharks. It's a top predator. But if you follow the protocols and you respect the rules that the locals give you, you are not going to have any problem.
Okay, awesome. So Chris asks, are bull sharks the only single species able to live both in salt and brackish or fresh water? Or are other species able to move between
I think
the two?
in Australia there is another species. I have to check. Now I don't remember exactly, but I think there is just 1 or 2 cases of other species that are also able to live in fresh water, but is probably 1 or 2 more. That's why bull sharks are very, very particular, and is the most, the one that has been recorded in as like far from the shore. So it has a record of getting inside of the Nicaragua River, inside like 3 kilometers away from the shore. So that's why it's very impressive.
Awesome. Ro asks, for manta rays, there are platforms where you can submit photos to help identify them, such as Manta Trust and Pacific Manta Research Group. Has there anything similar for any shark species?
Yes, there are some studies with different species, like with white sharks. They have been using the fin, the dorsal fin of the white shark, in order to see if there are some notches or like edges that you can see. Bull sharks can have some marks, like scars on the gills, or some coloration patterns that are very particular that we can use and identify sharks. So one of the projects in Pelagios, run by Miquel Grau, with this nice example, is to see if there are particular sharks that we can identify, and then to see if they are present all in different years. And yes, there is a lot of initiatives to start to identifying different shark species by individual.
Awesome. So Faye asks, she says, thank you so much. It's been really interesting. Is it possible for bull sharks in, say, Mozambique to migrate to Cabo or vice versa? Do they make long migrations?
I don't think it's possible. As far as I know, there are no studies in this area for genetics, but I think they are very limited by the shallow areas. So they could do some migrations, but I don't think they could do transatlantic or trans-Pacific migrations. So most of the movements are very short, and yes, they are very located to some areas. So I don't think we have movements between populations.
Do you see any long movements even here, say in Baja or in the Eastern Pacific, of them moving in large distance more than just outside of the local region?
Inside the Gulf, yes, we have some records of bull sharks getting inside the Gulf as far as Espiritu Santo Island. But in terms of going offshore to Revilla or to other places where we also have receivers, no. So they just get limited by the continental shelf. They could go probably to Maria's area or to areas close to shore, but we think they are, because they find all the conditions in Cabo Pulmo, they spend a lot of time there, and then they don't go out to other places.
Awesome. Omar asks, what is the most difficult thing when tagging sharks? And he says, congratulations too.
Thank you. I think we want to protect the sharks, and we want the sharks to be as healthiest as is possible, because we want to track them in their natural behavior. So for us, it's very important that we don't affect them, we don't stress them, and they don't die. So when we are doing, especially the internal tagging, we try to do it as fast as we can, but obviously having protocols for security and for the safety of the shark. So it can be very stressing, but also it's very exciting. And in terms of doing it scuba diving, I think the most important is safety. So normally when Mauricio is there is a group of people that is looking for other sharks that don't act aggressively. So we try to do all these under controlled conditions. And if we see that the sharks are not behaving normally, we stop the mission and we come back a few days later or something else.
Awesome. All right. So Jamie asked, what's the difference in the water temperatures between the cold and warm water that you see in the park? And if you happen to know the temperature differences or temperatures in Fahrenheit?
I don't know, you can help me.
I'll help you
But
with
the coldest in Cabo Pulmo can be an average of 16 degrees in the winter in centigrades. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how is that.
16 is about high 50s, 59, 58 Fahrenheit.
And the warmest could be 30 degrees centigrade.
In Fahrenheit is around low 80s, 82 to 83, something like around that way off the top of my head. I'm not a good calculator.
So it's more than 15 degrees difference. So it's very, very drastic. And also in terms of visibility and the fishes that you can see, it changed completely from winter to summer. So this is a photo probably in October, November, when the conditions are perfect. And you have very clear water that are maybe 30 meters visibility. And in winter, like now, you can have water that is 2 meters visibility, green, but it's very productive. It's full of humpback whales now. So it changed a lot.
I think for me, I find that always amazing about living here in Baja is how we can go from such ridiculously warm, like Caribbean style or Southeastern Asian style waters, and then 6 months later be in freezing cold green waters. It shows the resilience of the species that come through here and that stay in this area throughout the year, and the corals and everything. It's mind blowing that they can handle this, 15 degrees Celsius or 30 degree Fahrenheit jump in temperature change throughout the year is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So Pedro asks, he says, hello Frida, nice job you have done. I would like to know if you have found any relationship of the bull shark population recovery with any increase in some of their prey population in Cabo Pulmo.
Yes, I think that's one of the main reasons. They have enough prey to sustain a big population of bull sharks. If there were no prey for all these large males and large females, probably they had to leave and go somewhere else. So because we have big aggregation of yellow snappers, jacks, I think that is what is sustaining this healthy population of bull sharks. So if we don't take care of the park and they just allow fishing again, probably the sharks will be very affected and they will leave or do something different.
No. I think that's key in Cabo Pulmo. It's one of the most greatest or drastic changes in biomass in that park than you see in any other parks in the world. It's unbelievable for anyone that's been out there, been diving with the jacks or anything. Like the biomass in this one bay is just mind-blowing. It's really incredible.
And we have proofs that they are feeding there because we have found a lot of tooth. So when you go diving there, you can see the teeth in the area close to the wreck. So some of them are super fresh. You can see even the cartilage attached to the teeth. So we know for sure that the sharks are feeding there.
That's amazing. So going on from that, Todd asked, what is the best approach, do you believe, to show the success of the Cabo Pulmo Park and lobby other countries to say follow their approach? Being able to get the message out to fishermen in countries that ecotourism is becoming more and more economic. And have you thought of lobbying to other countries to get more protected parks?
Yeah, I think Cabo Pulmo, as it has classified by Blue Mission and other NGOs, is a hope spot, is a place that gives you hope about protecting the ocean. So I think we can see it in different approaches. The economic approach is very powerful for governments. So if you show them that it has a very important benefit for the economy of the region, is a very important point. We have seen that the locals that used to be fishermen and now they are having their own business in ecotourism are getting very, very successful. They have their own companies, they have their own boats, they are able to have a house. The kids are even studying in Canada or like having a very great success. So we are very happy to show that in different approaches, also in terms of ecology, in terms of biology, in terms of like how the community was the first in saying, we want to protect, we want to stop catching sharks, we want to stop fishing. And then it was a great success.
I think that's great. I mean, Baja, I think something about the culture in Baja, at least, it tends to lend itself a little bit more to being open to these kind of things. A lot of the fishermen and everything we work with dive ninjas, with our expeditions and these things, they're really open. They want to see a change. Then a lot of them also really want to protect the area, which I find very beautiful. It's not something I've seen in a lot of other places I've worked and been and everything like that. It's more just about, say, making the money or something like that. But like a lot of the captains and stuff we work with on our expeditions and these things, they actually really care about the area and they really want to protect it. And I mean, you could be out in the middle of the ocean cruising at 20 knots and they'll stop the boat to just pick up a plastic bottle that's floating in the ocean without even asking or anything like that. It's the culture here in Baja, it has a different style to it, a different warmth to it that we don't see in a lot of other places. And it's beautiful. I think it would be great. I mean, if Cabo Pulmo could be replicated in more areas throughout Baja and, you know, become more of an even bigger example throughout the world.
Yeah, that's the main plan. Pelagios has been working a lot on that. We try to involve fishermen in the tagging expedition so they know where the sharks are and they know how to catch them. So we get them involved, and once they start seeing you tagging the sharks, taking care of them, worrying a lot about them, getting so passionate about sharks alive, I think is a way to spread the awareness, no? So you don't go and tell them stop catching. You go with them and work with them, and then they see the example of you being so passionate that they want to be part of it. So we have been working with people in the Gulf, and now they want to protect the sharks and they want to stop catching sharks and using other not invasive fishing gear. So they are part of our team now.
It's incredible. It's really, really incredible. And it shows that they're, you know, to them and everything and to the world, that they're worth more alive than dead, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Frida asks, she has a curiosity about what the reaction of the sharks is when they are actually tagged. How do they react when you tag them?
I wanted to show you the video. I don't know if I can put it, but if you want, I can send you the link. What we have seen is that they don't expect you to actually do something to them. So they normally see you close to shore, and no, it's not working. And they don't expect you to do that. So normally what we have seen is that they get very scared. So we haven't seen any, like, it's very weird to have an aggressive behavior. They normally just go away because they just get scared. So I was trying to look for.
If you like, you could paste the link into the chat for them to watch too, if it's not working.
But yeah, it's basically the sharks just go away. They just get scared and they just go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So going back, just backtracking on the other question, Kencho asks, he was asking about the Los Frailes camp. For those that don't really know the area, I mean, Kencho's local with us here in Baja and Cabo. I find that even myself, I find that very like juxtaposing, because you have this incredible marine park and just next door to it is a massive shark fishing area, like a shark fishing camp. Does that affect anything with the park? And do those fishermen target bull sharks or any of those? Or are they still only targeting pelagic species?
Well, I think seeing shark fishermen as enemies is a bad idea. It's very important to remember the people, remind them that shark fishing is totally legal in Mexico. So we have to work with them. We have to understand their conditions. Yes, Cabo Pulmo is 71 square kilometers large, but yes, as Jay was saying, there is just next to Cabo Pulmo, in the next little mountain. As soon as the park finished, you have a very big shark fishing camp, and they have very difficult conditions. They live in really bad conditions. They spend a couple of days there. They don't have water. They just camp there. And I think being a shark fisherman almost everywhere in the world is very hard, because they need to catch a lot of sharks in order to get the fins and sell it as like dry meat, and it's a very hard work, I think. So what we have been trying is to get them also involved, the people in Cabo Pulmo. Sometimes in the high season it's more capitans, so they invite them to participate and see the example and see that it's not impossible to change. I know there is a lot of people that love fishing and it's hard to tell them to stop doing it, but maybe they can not just stop doing it, but changing to being captains for taking people and showing them their beauty of their place. So it's not a drastic change, but I think gradually you can show them and give them opportunities. So yeah, probably it will be a good idea to start working with people in Frailes and try to see if they can start doing something similar to Cabo Pulmo.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I think one of the things that people don't really realize is a lot of the shark fishermen, it's not like they woke up one day and decided they wanted to just go fish sharks. It's a very like long lineage. These family, their father did it, their grandfather did it. They were kind of born into it, and that's what they've been doing and all that. And like Frida was saying, they live in really poor conditions and all this kind of stuff. It is very easy for us to point the blame at the fishermen themselves. When in my belief it's more the industry and the commercialization of it that seems to be the bigger issue, the demand, the movement of it, whether it be for fins or meat, et cetera, et cetera. But in projects like with like Regina and Nakawe and Mac Bay and these areas, like they've shown that like, and even in Las Brales with Regina and them too, and you guys in Pelagios, is like it shows that they're very interested to, they are interested to learn, they are interested to look at potentially either changing methodology or even moving into ecotourism and getting away from shark fishing for a better life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all that.
I've been able to work with them for like a couple of days, and I think it's people that is very connected to the ocean. They love the ocean. They love what they catch. Sometimes I see them so grateful to get the catch every day, and they wake up super early, and then they work and they see the animals and the fish. Like they have a very strong connection to the ocean, and it's very interesting to learn with them about the things they see. And I think is part of one thing that we need to know, no? How to communicate our findings and translate it to a language that they can understand and they can use. And as soon as you get them involved, they react positively, and they start supporting your ideas and being part of it. So I think it's important that these new strategies don't come from the government or from big companies or people with power or money. It has to come from the community that is there, and you have to involve them in the monitoring, in identifying the species so they can see the change. No, it's not us going as scientists and tell them what to do, what we have found. And yes, I think it's changing a lot. There is a lot of interest and there is a lot of support to do that. So I think it's the right time to do it. We still have a lot of sharks. We know there are places that has the potential to be like Cabo Pulmo. So it's just in terms of talking to people and convincing them to be part of these initiatives.
Awesome. Great. So Chloe asks, is tagging the bull sharks or the sharks the only way you can track them? Or is there any way for individuals to be ID'd, say, through photo ID or any other way, like you can do with whale shark patterns or mantas, etc.?
Yes, there is no like a specific method for bull sharks to do it now, but we are working on that. As I was telling you, you can use some marks like specific scars that you think they are gonna last for a long time, because bull sharks, as other sharks, they can get a lot of scars because of mating. So some of them just in 1 year they can totally change. They just recover the tissue and you don't see them anymore. So you have to select some different coloration patterns, different parts of the body, like notches in the fins. And then when you have a certain number of references, you can get to know some sharks. For example, we have some that lose part of their fins or they have like some scars on the snout or something that is clearly a different shark, and we have seen them for 5 years, the same shark. So yes, we can identify them without tagging them.
Awesome. So a few people have asked if where do they actually know, like, is there actual data or research on where bull sharks give birth? Like, does it actually happen in estuaries or in rivers or in shallow areas, mangroves, etc.? Or is that more that it's just hypothesized?
Has been shown in other places, like in Australia or in Florida, in Costa Rica. They have been able to find places where they have seen big females that are pregnant, and in places where they have found newborns that still have like the burn mark. So you can see that they just were released, and you can see that they are very, very small. In Cabo Pulmo, I think it's difficult because of the conditions, that is desertic, and probably is not going to be that easy because we don't have lagoons or rivers, specific places where we can start looking for them. But there are new technologies. We start working with Dr. Slowowski, that is one of the top shark scientists working on reproduction, and he's going to start using ultrasounds and beard tags to locate the places where the sharks are. But this is something new that is just happening, so probably he can tell you more about it next year or something like that.
Awesome. So Juan asks, you mentioned that shark watching had become a profitable business in Cabo Pulmo. He wonders how are conservation programs positively impacted with that, and what policies and restrictions are there to create sustainability in that regard?
I think, yes, Cabo Pulmo is an example of collaboration between the community, the scientists, and NGOs. So they have a very important program for the ecosystem capacity, the public use of Cabo Pulmo. They have a certain number of divers that can be in the dive sites every week. So they have a very controlled program for knowing how many people get in the water in each of the places, because we know, as probably is logical, that the places where you can see more bull sharks or the jacks are the places that most of the people wants to go dive. But we cannot take everyone to the same place. So that's why the park is trying to control the numbers of divers every week, especially October, November, when they have 300 divers in one day. So the idea is that scientists and the NGOs and the locals can work together to find better strategies to manage this capacity for the park.
Awesome. And Morgan asks, what is the attitude of the local community in Cabo Pulmo about the bull sharks? Do they take pride in it? Do they take pride in the animals that they find in the park? Or do they have some fear of the sharks or anything like that?
I think they are respectful. They don't go swimming at night. They don't go swimming by themselves. They try to follow some rules, but they know and they recognize sharks are very important in terms of the diving activity. So I think they are very proud of having them there. Is something very special to see, and they are super curious about sharks. So when we have the chance to go and give talks to the locals, to the dive masters, they are always asking questions about things that they have seen, behaviors that are not common for them. Yeah, it's very cool to see the locals are very interested about knowing more. And also another thing that I have seen is that there are more souvenirs that are related to bull sharks. So when you go to Cabo Pulmo, there is a souvenir shop, and you can get like T-shirts and stuff like that. So it could be not important, but it is to get the community to get a benefit of it, and to create like a symbol of the park for the tourists, that if they go to Cabo Pulmo, they can get this symbol of the bull sharks and the importance of this species in this specific place. In other places, like in Costa Rica, I have found that there are not many like shark souvenirs. and is one of the most important places for hammerheads, for example. So I think creating with the community the symbols and the proud, feeling proud about what they have in their place is very important.
Awesome. Juan is joining us. He's actually a dive instructor working in Cabo Pulmo, and he asks if there's any way that the instructors and stuff that are working there can help or collaborate with what you guys are doing out there.
Yes, now Pelagios is part of the certification program. So every year, if you are a certified guide, you have to take a course where they remind you the specific rules for the park. And now they include a part about shark behavior and good practices interacting with sharks that is given by Pelagios, by Miquel, and by James. So yes, we are trying to get more and more involved with the community and the dive masters. We don't have now a program for the dive masters to record their sightings, but probably we could work with them and create something like a platform for them to show us what they have seen.
Super cool. So Chris asked, what is the main diet of a bull shark? What do they feed on?
I think it depends a lot on the places. In Cabo Pulmo, there is no any study about the stomach content, but what I found was that they normally eat conchrids like the garden eels, and they also have found they eat a lot of sea turtles. Green turtles are part of the diet. I think in Cabo Pulmo they eat a lot yellow snappers and some groupers and jacks. But I think we need to do more studies on the stomach content, the diet, or because we don't. It's a species that is protected in the park. Probably the easiest way will be to do other techniques like chemistry, like using stable isotopes that could allow us to know more about their diet.
Awesome. So Marie Charlotte asks what has been the most surprising discovery about the bull sharks in Cabo Pulmo that Pelagios has found so far?
I think many things, like being able to record the recovery of the sharks in terms of diversity. Pelagios published a paper about 12 species of sharks that had been recorded in Cabo Pulmo. That's something that for me is crazy, no? Because you normally just see bull sharks, but there are more. Like, for example, in this photo, you can see Katie. Katie is working with black tip sharks, and there is also other students working with lemon sharks. We have seen silkies, hammerheads, whale sharks. So it's super, super diverse in terms of the species of sharks that are in Cabo Pulmo. So that's one of the things that amaze me a lot. And it shows you how important it is in terms of migratory species too, that they are passing by the park, they are getting protected, they can feed and keep going in their migration.
Awesome. So Anard and Noé both ask, what species has the largest population of sharks in Mexico, and where would it be located, or where is it seen?
Well, it's hard to know the largest. As I was telling you, most of the studies around the world are based on fisheries. So as far as we know, one of the most, like the largest catches are blue sharks, silky sharks, some hammerhead treasure sharks. So we know these are the species that are normally in the pelagic environments in the open ocean. These are the common species. Close to shore, I will say black tip sharks are one of the largest species that we have, and also very impacted by artisanal fishing. So having nets close to shore could impact their juveniles.
Awesome. So Elsa asks, is there currently any collaboration between Mexican scientists to work towards protecting sharks at a national level in the country?
Yes, Pelagios is involved in some of the initiatives to protect other species of sharks. For example, we are working a lot to try to protect hammerheads, to include it in the list for regulating the commercialization of the fins and other parts of their body, because hammerheads this last year was reclassified as critically endangered. So hammerheads are very close to the edge of extinction. So in Cabo Pulmo, there are records of great hammerheads. They used to see them a lot, but they are almost gone in Mexico. We don't see great hammerheads anymore. These are the ones that are, for example, in the Bahamas and stuff like that. But because here the great hammerheads had the largest fin, they probably catch them a lot, and that's why they are gone. So we don't want other species of shark to get extinct or locally extinct in this area. So that's why we are trying to work a lot with the government. And it's interesting to translate what we are finding in like new rules, new enforcement, but we are working with them to be able to do it.
Awesome. So Carrie asks, weren't the first bull sharks that returned back to Cabo Pulmo after the decline, weren't they tagged in mainland Mexico? Were they tagged in mainland Mexico before returning to Pulmo? Did they come from the mainland?
We don't know exactly where they come from. Yeah, they could come from probably other areas. Some of them could be just in low numbers, so that's why we don't see them. We didn't see them that often, but they could be just around, just not as common, no? So we think there is a connectivity with Maria's Islands that used to be a prison. Now they just open it. We think that's one of the largest shark populations in the region, but we didn't tag sharks before that, so we don't know exactly where they came from. Probably with genetics we could like start knowing more about their origin, but at the moment we don't know.
Awesome. Faye asks, are you seeing any social behaviors with the sharks where the same ones are spotted in the same area or at the same time from any from your data or photos or tags?
I'm working on that. As data manager, I'm always looking for new things to ask with the data. So I want to do like social networks, as it has been done in other studies for social aspects, like social science. So what you do, instead of having just the stations, you use the sharks and you track them and see if two sharks are always detected at the same time, like if they were friends or something. So it has been shown in other species that there is a strong like aggregation behavior. So some mantas, for example, have seen very structured, so they travel together for years and years. So yeah, they could be. It's hard to define it because not because we always go to the same cafe, we are not friends, right? So it's very hard to to have a criteria about social behavior and aggregation by itself. But we are working on that. I think it's a very interesting point.
You just have to look and see if they're sitting down to share a cappuccino or not.
Exactly.
So Marie Charlotte asks, could the freshwater adaptation of the bull sharks be possibly related to where they give birth, similarly to the lemon sharks in the mangroves?
Yes, it's one of the main reasons. So that's why we put some sensors, temperature sensors, and we are trying to take all the conditions, the environmental conditions. Every time we go diving, we take notes of all the conditions. So we try to show that, no, if there is a pattern of specific species doing specific behaviors according to the changes. But to do that, to be able to determine that, we need a lot of data. So that's why it takes time, but we are working on that.
Awesome. Then let's see. So Andre asks, what would you like to achieve from your research in the short term, say in the next 5 years?
Well, I think it's important to be able to translate this on other initiatives, to be able to share it with other people, and to be able to do like more work with them. So I think it will be good for the locals to get like good practices manuals, to be able to build these platforms for them to show what they have seen, and yes, to work with the community in terms of being more organized on conservation and involve them more in all these efforts.
Awesome. So Rachel asked, do you find that the sex of bull shark offspring is temperature dependent? And if so, are warming ocean temperatures having an effect on the ratios?
Yes, I don't think they get affected as other species like reptiles, like sea turtles, but probably they will affect a lot their distribution, like the places where they normally are. So we have seen in other species that are very strict by the temperature, that they will move to places where there is the range of where they normally like to be, no? So probably it's going to affect global warming. It's going to affect a lot, not just the bull sharks, but also the prey or the species that are related. So we are going to, I think we are going to see a lot of changes on their behavior.
Awesome. And do you see pregnant females at all in Pomo?
Yes, we have seen, like, it's hard to say if it's pregnant or not. We are not 100% sure that they are pregnant, but when you look to them, their belly is distended, like the abdomen is distended, so and they are large, so you can see that it's different than just a female that is large, no? Like you can see the abdomen is very particular. But there are many questions that we still need to answer about their reproduction.
Awesome. And then one more, I'm gonna do one more question. It's already 20 minutes. We've taken extra of your time today. So let me grab one more question and we'll let you get back to work. An anonymous person asks, is there a way for the people at home, the people watching right now, to get involved in, say, helping Los Praos start to work on diving, or other ways they could even get involved in shark conservation, whether it be here in Baja or at home or anything like that?
I think one of the ways is to get informed, to follow Pelagios and the work we are doing, the efforts that we have, and if you are willing or you have time to do an internship, is I think is a good opportunity to get involved. Other ways will be to donate if you don't have time to come but you want to donate some of the efforts. You can get to the website and see how you can do that. And yes, I think just being informed and reading more about the situation and knowing more about the place is the first step.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think two other ways for those that, you mean, you want to get involved, but maybe you can't, you're not going to have time to do an internship, or you're not working in biology or science or these things, is to look for ecotourism projects and like citizen science projects. Citizen science for me and for us at Dive Ninjas is a huge part of what we do. It's actually where I first met Frida a long time ago. I mean, for those that don't know, citizen science projects are basically trips where you go diving or free diving, snorkeling, etc. But they have a scientist working with them. The scientist is actively working on research in that area, and the citizens, the divers or the tourists, they get to take part in that research. They get to help collect data, or they get to learn about the research. It could be, you know, pretty hands-on. Some are not as hands-on. But then throughout the week, you're learning, the scientists are giving presentations, teaching you about the species, teaching you about the threats they face, how you can help them, and these kind of things. But usually what's really great on the back side of that is the citizen science projects. A lot of times they help to fund research, or they help to get the scientists out to where they need to be collecting data, or raising funds for these projects and everything like that. For instance, with us, with Dive Ninjas, with say Marta, who works with the Mobula Rays, we donate a large portion of the money that comes in from those projects to help fund her research. It's like 40% of the profits that come from those tours all go to just funding her to fund her research so she could do more work and continue doing research and continue protecting these animals and these kind of things. So looking for those kind of projects, there's a lot of really great ones out there around the world. It's starting to become a bigger thing in the world. Is another really, really great one. I mean, being vocal, learning, and following like the scientists online and all that stuff is also really, really, you know, helpful in getting the information out and all that kind of stuff. So, well, thank you so much, Frida. We've kept you way longer than we were supposed to. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for everybody at home that joined us today. There's a poll. If you click the little polling button down in the bottom asking what kind of topics you'd like us to talk about next, what days of the week are best for you and everything like that. Let us know so we can keep moving on with this. Tomorrow, we've got a really special talk coming up with Jillian Morris-Brake from Sharks for Kids out of the Bimini, Bahamas. She's going to be giving a little introduction to sharks for the little ones and all that, but all ages are welcome. It's not only kids, but everyone can join it, and it's kind of like a Shark 101, a fun Sharks 101 course. So we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for everyone to spend the time and learn about sharks with.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
We can't wait to have you back, guys. We'll let you know when Frida's going to be doing her Spanish talk and any other talks coming up. Have a great day, guys. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.